French are coming. The French are coming. They're invading the U.S. No, tannins do not give you a headache in red wine. And man, that's a lot of sugar. All that and more on this episode of This Week Uncorked. Hello and welcome to episode 14 of This Week Uncorked for Monday, October 21st, 2024. From Cork and Journey, I'm Brett Martin. Cork and Journey is your number one source for Corkage fees, so please check it out. We also have wine reviews, winery reviews, restaurant reviews. It's all over there at corkandjourney.com. And let's get right on into the news, shall we? Great article over in the San Francisco Chronicle by Jess Lander about a lawsuit from Constellation Brands against a winemaker. So he makes a Pinot Noir, as Adam Lee, he makes a Pinot Noir called the Dial Tone. And on his little display case next to the Meiomi, he stated on there that there's less sugar in 32 bottles of Dial Tone than just one bottle of Meiomi Pinot Noir. If you aren't familiar with Meiomi, it is a very, very, very popular mass-produced Pinot Noir. And it's one that the wine critics love to hate or hate to love or whatever. They don't like it. They talk about it a lot. It kind of gets thrown in with the Prisoner and the kind of the mass-produced type of wines. Anyway, basically the bottom line is that they sent the lawyers from Constellation Brands, sent him a cease and desist letter and said, you must stop this. It's false advertising. So he went ahead, they retested it, and it turns out that it's like 40 times or something like that now because there's actually more sugar. They did a couple tests. It's a great article, really interesting to read, but basically he did not back down and is not backing down. And so we will see what happens there. But it's a little David versus Goliath thing. But it's interesting. This kind of gets back to a few episodes we were talking about truth in labeling in wines. And should you have the sugar content? Should you have the calorie content? Should you have what's been added to it? Because this article also goes on to discuss, oak powder, oak chips, mega purple, which is a super concentrated grape dye that kind of adds texture and body and color to wines. There are all these things that you can put in wines. And should there be truth in labeling? Should you say how much sugar is in a wine? Because you can still call it a dry wine even with that percentage of sugar in the wine. But you do taste that sweetness for sure if you've ever had a glass of Meiomi. Anyway, moving on with the news here. Another crazy myth. So oftentimes people say, oh, I can't drink red wine because the tannins give me a headache. And I've always said, no, it's not the tannins. It's been proven it's not the tannins. But what it is, it's a compound called quercetin, quercetin. And it turns out that is what gives you the headache. But maybe it's time to try some Italian wines because the Sangrantino and the Tannat have the lowest level of that compound in their wines. So if you grab yourself a Tannat, grab yourself a Sangrantino. That's a really unique grape, by the way. Evidently, it's one of those that you kind of need to leave in bottle for a while. I've yet to have one, but in reading the article, I was like, I have to try that out. So I'm going to grab myself a bottle of that, and we'll see what I think of that as well. So, and with that, hey, quick plug for our buddy Rex Pickett. If you head over to rexpickettbooks.com, he's the author of the novel Sideways. He's written 3 other Sideways books. This is Sideways New Zealand. It's his latest. It's great. Anyway, if you head over to rexpickettbooks.com, use the code CORK10 and get 10% off your entire order over at rexpickettbooks.com. It's got some more coming. So I really suggest if you're a fan of the movie, you will absolutely love the books, and he will autograph them for you. He will sign them for you. He's got movie posters he'll sign. So if you're a fan of the Sideways movie, head on over to rexpickettbooks.com and use the code CORK10 to pick up 10% off your entire order. All righty. And then we talked about how to keep the news positive, but Wine Searcher has another article about how wine and spirits are struggling in U.S. retail. Really interesting article. A few takes on this article. Expensive spirits took the biggest hits, with bottles that retail for over $100 down 8.5% in retail stores and 12.5% in bars and restaurants. So these are distributors that are selling in, and they're talking about the hit. So expensive spirits, so that's a bottle of, 1942 tequila. expensive scotch, those kind of things. We're seeing those hit. On the other hand, expensive wines won an immunity challenge. So wines above $50 in retail were up by 1%, a little under 1%. Prosecco was the only category that actually stayed the same and actually was up 2%. The bottom has fallen out of cheap wines. So wines in that $8 to $11 category are down 12.7%. So, that's the whole 19 Crimes, Apothic Red, all those red blends. They are not doing very well. Maybe, it's a taste thing. That's kind of your entry level wine. It's, again, those usually have a higher level of sugar content as well, but we're seeing a drop in those as well. So interesting. I do think that the wine industry will recover. It always does. There were a bunch of articles this week. If you head over to winebusiness.com, you click on their news, you can kind of catch up on all the news, but there's just, we got 500,000 tons of grapes are going to go unharvested this year in California. There's just a whole lot of really, wine sales are down. There's a glut of grapes. There's a glut of wine. People are hanging on to it. They've just, it's just not moving. So hopefully that turns around soon. And wrapping up the news, Janice Robinson over at janicerobinson.com has got a great long read about the French invasion of the U.S. No, they're not attacking us, but they are buying up a ton of wine properties, land, planting vineyards. If you're not familiar with Janice Robinson, she writes, The Oxford Companion to Wine. This is a monster thick volume. This is the 4th edition I have in my hands here. There's nothing you can't find out. You want to know something about a region, about a wine, about a grape, around anything. It's in that book. It's just killer, and it's absolutely amazing. But this article, there's a lot of reasons for it. You think, maybe climate change. Things are changing over there. They're trying to move through other regions. That's part of it. But also a big part of it is there's this 3-tier distribution system for wine in the United States. And then there's what's called DTC, or direct to consumer. So the big interesting thing is that a winery can sell wine directly to you, but they cannot sell it directly to a restaurant. They cannot sell it directly to a retail outlet. It's got to go through distribution. So it's got to go from the winery to the distributor to the restaurant or to Total Wine or wherever. That's what it's got to go. So French wines can't be sold direct to the consumer in the United States if they're over there, if they don't have a winery here in the US. So a lot of them open a winery, open a tasting room, make their wines, and now they can sell them direct to consumer. So it kind of cuts that middleman out. It also has a lot to do with, of course, the quality of the grapes that can be grown here, the different terroir, the different regions, all of those kind of things. But a really, really long read kind of goes through the whole history of the French just kind of coming over here and all the acquisitions, all the way back to, Mondavi and Rothschild doing Opus One and all of those kind of things. So interesting read. I highly recommend it. If you're not familiar with JaniceRobinson.com, well, that will be a treat for you as well. All right, with that, let's move on to our wine and winery of the week. All right, up in Napa, if you are up in Napa, you should check out Pine Ridge Vineyards. This is one of the premier wineries in Napa, and they have got something that they call their vineyard to cave experience. It is just absolutely amazing. I highly recommend it. It takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours. You get kind of a full tour of the caves. You do a beautiful tasting in the caves. Just really worth taking a look at. If you're up there, I highly recommend you check out Pine Ridge Vineyards. It's just exceptionally well guided. So sometimes, you do these tastings and they're really not doing anything, but they really take their time and they do an excellent job. I've got a bottle here of their Locked Horns Vineyards, Cabernet Sauvignon from 2021. Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding wine. And so, if you're up there, check out Pine Ridge, not to be confused with Ridge, which was in the Paris tasting. Completely different. Pine Ridge and Ridge, two different vineyards, two different wineries. Anyway, check them out. And our wine of the week is going to be a 2021 Bordeaux blend from Washington's Columbia Valley. It is at the 2021 Two Vintners Legit Red. We love this wine. We scored it 94 points. It's $35 a bottle. That is one heck of a bargain for the type of quality wine that you've got here. So we've got a link to it in the show notes as well. We did a full review of it, but you'll want to check out the 2021 Two Vintners Legit Red. Beautiful Bordeaux-style red blend from Washington's Columbia Valley. I'm telling you, great Cabernets come from everywhere. All right, and now let's take a look at our restaurant and Corkage of the week. We are moving on to Albuquerque, New Mexico. When Tina and I were doing our swing of lesser known Western wine producing states, we went to New Mexico, we went to Arizona, and we did a bunch of stuff in Texas. Those reviews have been coming out over on Cork and Journey of those wineries, and we did find some absolutely incredible wines. But one of the restaurants we stopped at in Albuquerque, and I've spent a lot of time in Albuquerque over the years, was Mesa Provisions, and it is just absolutely amazing. Chef Steve Riley is just doing things there that you just aren't seeing in New Mexico. And basically farm to table, beautiful, beautiful presentation, kind of some down home style foods in a lot of ways, served a little different, but man, oh man, if you see, looking at the pictures here, you can see how good it was. Just absolutely amazing. Anyway, if you are there and you are in Albuquerque, on down Route 66, stop by Mesa Provisions, say hi to Steve. You know, while you're there, help him out. Buy a t-shirt, give him some extra support, okay? I love picking up t-shirts everywhere we go. Anyway, and there is no corkage allowed because we've covered this on past shows. No corkage in New Mexico. It's a problem. It's a thing. It's been voted on. And you've got some restaurants that want it, some that don't, but it keeps getting turned down. So no corkage fees allowed, but their wine list was great and the bottles were all reasonably priced. So you'll be okay over at Mesa Provisions anyway. All right, with that, we're going to wrap up the show. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us here on This Week Uncorked. As always, we'd love it if you headed over to YouTube and subscribe to our Cork and Journey channel, Facebook, Instagram, all of the social media sites. Love it if you would subscribe and like. Thank you so much. Cheers. We'll see you next week.